Taylor's the brain, the expert, the guy. Matty's got jokes and a wild ride. 30 minutes, no time to spare. Stack your lineup anywhere. NFL Coach Halfa. Get your edge, get faster. Taylor leads, Matty's laughter. NFL SuperCoach Halfa.
Welcome back to the NFL SuperCoach Halfa-ish. I'm Matty C, and with me is my partner in SuperCoach legendariness. It's Australia's finest fantasy analyst. Welcome back, Taylor.
Matty C, tonight we're talking about tight ends, or loose ends as we like to call them, and some other positions. But you know what? Screw that. It's week one. Stick it up your bum. Let's go.
Every time you mispronounce a word a little bit, I get nervous of what's coming next.
The time constraints of our podcast, we definitely have to touch on our last sort of positions before we get into week one. But mate, I am so pumped for this week. It's honestly what we've all been waiting for. So let's go.
We do, and I think we did a good job of getting into quarterback because it's a much talked about position. The running back and the wide receiver are depth. So this one here now talks about kind of the remainders where between these, there's two starters for tight end, one starter for kicker defense, and then one each on the bench for them. So combined, we're talking about 7 heads, and there's not as much to go in depth on. We do plan to go in depth on a bunch of tight ends, but we also want to make sure we cover some strategy for kicker and defense. Get into the mailbag, mate. We're in week one. It means that people have got questions, and we're going to start scoring them this week, and some leagues won't kick off till next week. So we just need to give people the best opportunity to get off on the right foot, and we may even chuck in a pod along the way as well for those who are pod hunting, and a little bit of strategy around that. It sounds like a full show, mate.
Mate, can't wait to get into it. I know, obviously, I talk shit about tight end, calling it loose end, and how I have my issues with it in sort of regular NFL fantasy where I just feel like there's never really enough relevant guys, but there's definitely some guys that I think are great value in the position, and I think people are looking at that position as somewhere where they are still making decisions. So I think it's going to be very valuable to the listeners, to the super coaches tonight.
Yeah, I think it will be too, because, I mean, this is one where you and I actually haven't really talked about what we're doing here, so I'm kind of interested in this. And I know there's part of me that's like, well, I've got all this NFL fantasy background, but with the SuperCoach part, I consider myself a student when we come together in some of the strategy. So it's helpful for me to then talk through with you what I'm doing in each of these positions. It kind of helps me get my compass right. Mate, before we get into it, I just wanted to mention quickly too, this is the last opportunity to join the NFL tipping competition that the AGN are running. The Aussie Gridiron Network are giving away a custom NFL jersey to the person who wins our tipping comp. You can find the entry at linktree/Aussie Gridiron Network. Free to enter, and there is no complication. You are literally just picking the team who you think is going to win the matchup each game for each week of the NFL season, and the person with the most points at the end wins. Simple. Nice big custom NFL jersey at the end of that. And we're all going to kick off games Friday. So yeah, this means that you've got today, tomorrow to get it done because games kick off tomorrow, 10 o'clock, mate, that Eagles and Dallas game. So we're up against it to get people their information.
Absolutely, mate. And I've changed my mind. I'm thinking a Dante Thornton Jr. jersey if I take that home, mate. He's I don't even know if they've got any of his jerseys out there, being a 4th round rookie, but I absolutely love his tape. I love his college profile, and honestly, I think he's going to come in and stun a lot of people in the NFL straight away. My favourite dynasty target out there. So I just thought I'd get in on the ground floor and take a shot at someone who probably a lot of super coaches have never even heard of.
You know what I'm going to do? And I know this is sacrilege, but I'm going to get a Peyton Manning Jaguars jersey because I feel like that would just be right. Put the greatest player of all time at the greatest team of all time. Don't you think that'd be great? No one would criticise me for that at all.
One of those statements is close to true, Matty C. Greatest player of all time, Jags team, greatest team of all time. You be the judge at home, which one of those is actually close to being true.
Mate, let's get into the tight ends. Let's kick it off there because there is some things to talk about. The most owned tight end by SuperCoaches at the moment is Tyler Warren. Who's Tyler Warren?
Look, mate, $4.5 million with a break even of 8, 47% owned. Honestly, I think he should be 100% of teams. He was starting with a bit of a no-brainer at the top for me. High draft capital, and he's been drafted to a team who need him, and he could be the number one receiver straight away on this team. I also believe that Daniel Jones starting over Anthony Richardson was a bit of an uptick in the passing side of things for Indianapolis this year. So I'm not sitting here saying that Daniel Jones is an amazing quarterback by any stretch, but there's definitely been some stats to show that sometimes in the tight end landscape, you don't really need an amazing passing quarterback anyway. You can actually sustain tight end success just purely from targets and being sort of that number one option on your team. So sometimes it's more about what's around you more so than the actual quarterback itself. We just saw, we'll touch on Brock Bowers soon, but he had possibly the worst quarterback situation you'll ever see in the NFL, and he still broke out as a rookie. So Tyler Warren has had amazing, numbers in college. He comes in honestly looking like, a Brock Bowers again this year. So at that price, to me, he's an absolute no-brainer, and I even have him starting in my starting lineup at the moment.
Ooh, okie dokie. I mean, his break even for week 1 is 8. Doesn't take much to break 8 with the way that SuperCoach scores. And at 47% owned, I like to see that people are investing high in a young, cheap guy who's going to be on the field, who has as much chance to produce as any of these other guys. He'll be out there quite a lot. That's sort of what you're looking for. He's kind of a bit of a cheat code there at tight end. The second most owned guy is the opposite of that. He was number 1 in all the scoring formats for tight end last year. Brock Bowers of the Las Vegas Raiders. He's 46% owned. He's $14.26 million, and his break even is 24 points this week. It is the opposite of everything that Tyler Warren's doing. But why is he an attractive candidate?
Yeah, mate, Brock Bowers, or Cock Showers, as some handsome podcaster coined him a few weeks ago. Like you said, just a touch over 14 mil, but break even to 24 and 46% owned. I honestly feel like with this one, you're probably mostly getting what you paid for. There is reason for upside in his second season. Obviously, generally, like you after your rookie season, you normally see an uptick. I will say, on a devil's advocate from the other side, though, he's basically getting a coach in Pete Carroll that likes to run the ball. I do think this offense is going to be pretty predicated on the run. But he also gets a situation again, like I love Jacoby Myers. I've even talked about Dante Thornton in the receiving game, but generally Brock Bowers is going to be getting a lot of targets. It's just hard off that season, 112 receptions for 1,194 yards and 5 touchdowns. It's hard to see that going too far north. So it's one of these ones where I just think if you're plugging him into your team, he's a great tight end. He's sort of part of 3 guys that I've talked about in regular NFL fantasy that I think have a bit of an upside over the rest. So I've got no problem with you doing it. I just don't think it's going to be one that's going to make you a lot of money. And it's just going to be one of those ones where you're just getting what you pay for each week, I think.
Yeah. It's like keeper you talk about. Like you get a gun, you want your gun to be a keeper, yeah?
And that's fine, honestly, mate. Like, if you want to do it, do it. I don't personally have it because I'm spending a little bit less at tight end. I just think there's other positions of higher upside that I'm looking for those sort of guns in. But if you want to just lock and load a guy that you know you're getting out of, and he is a little bit cheaper than a couple of the other guys, or at least one of the other guys in this position, so I've got no problem with it.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of interesting because here we go, like we did at some of the other positions. The next guy there is another cheapie who is a rookie who's got no body of work, comes in at sort of 4.5 mil. His name's Colston Loveland, plays for the Bears, who didn't notoriously have a terrific offense last year. He's 25% owned. So all of a sudden there's this yawning chasm between 47, 46. Third most owned guy, 25. Firstly, I think that's probably right that Colston Loveland shouldn't be owned by everybody and their dog. I don't think he's got the same setup as Tyler Warren. But do you think it's worthwhile having him as your cheapie to try and help generate money?
Yeah, look, a tad over 4.5 mil to break even at 8. There really isn't anything you can go wrong. This isn't me going to sit here like we've talked about with guys like Travis Hunter in the wide receiver position. It's not about this being a bad pick. It is fine. Like, you're going to make money, and it's too low of a price for it to actually not succeed. I just think 25% is a little bit too high in my opinion. He has the draft capital like Tyler Warren, like he was taken just before him. My question is, what is his role in this Bears offense? You've got DJ Moore, who's a locked and loaded wide receiver 1. You've got Rome Odunze, who I believe is locked and loaded for wide receiver 2 role. You've got Luther Burden, who they took with high draft capital in the receiver position as well, so we don't know exactly what that looks like. We've got DeAndre Swift out of the backfield who's going to catch a lot of passes, so there's a good chance he's in front of Loveland in terms of targets. We've even got another tight end in Cole Kmet, who is the incumbent. Cole Kmet. I thought
we were never going to hear that song again. I really did.
I haven't had a chance on the regular show to play to sing that beautiful tune, and I took my opportunity for the super coaches out there, Matty C. And look, I just think there's too many mouths to feed on this team, and the problem is it's not like Detroit where you've got this like knowledge of that's going to be an amazing offense. Yes, they've got their old OC and Ben Johnson, but we need to see it first to see what this offensive looks like, because there's a chance that they're just a middle of the pack offense with 5 mouths to feed. So I've got question marks about it. Like I said, it's fine if you want to take him as your backup tight end. I wouldn't be wanting to start him in my starting lineup in week 1. But if he's your backup tight end, it's fine. I'm assuming that's where most of the 25% that own him are doing. But I just think there's some better value and other guys that I'm taking that I believe I'm more locked in on what their role is week 1.
Yeah, I would feel the exact same. I worry about Colson Loveland's opportunity, but I understand that as long as you don't have him in a scoring position, if he's on your bench, I feel like that's a safer spot for him. I've got all the trust in the world in the fourth guy on the list, though. He's only 21% owned, and I think it's because the price tag. Other people may feel like you can invest the money in a different spot, but I went ahead and put George Kittle as my sort of gun tight end. He is expensive at 15.5 mil, and he's got a high break even. You know, you and I have talked about this on our regular fantasy show about the opportunity for George Kittle at a position of scarcity. There's not a lot of amazing tight ends out there. So I've got a lot of faith in him. I realize that that's not a strategy everyone's going to take with tight end, but that's what I've done.
Yeah, like you mentioned, just a tad over 15.5 mil, a break even at 21% owned. Look, he had 78 catches for 1,106 yards and 8 touchdowns last year. So there was a role for him, like a pretty significant one. He has less volume than the other top-end tight ends. You know, you saw the other two, we'll get to obviously McBride in a sec, but the other guys have over 100 receptions, whereas Kittle's does a lot of his work off less receptions. I think there's actually reason to believe that actually changes this year. I don't think he ever gets north of 100, but there is a role for him that I think's even better than last year. There's no Debo, who was taking up a lot of the time. There's no Ayuk for at least half the season, and honestly, when he gets back, I just don't think that it's going to be an injury that you can come back from very well. There's question marks on Juwan Jennings, his health. You've got Pearsall in the wide receiver room, who's a second-year player and not proven, and obviously came into last year and got shot, which was obviously devastating for him and personally and honestly professionally as well. So, look, I just think Kittle honestly I think he's the best tight end in the league, and that doesn't just take in receiving. I just think he's an amazing blocker. He does exactly what this team needs. The problem is in the past, when they've had all these weapons in the passing game, they haven't needed him to be fantasy relevant all the time, whereas I think this year they need him to be. He's priced on a very good season last year, however, but I just think there's reason to believe that he could actually be even better than last year. I will say on that, Matty, you're probably going to be surprised. I actually don't have him in my team currently. It's one of these ones where the way I've sort of just gone with this position, there's another guy we'll get to later that I just think is a slam dunk for me. I'm looking at a bit of value at tight end. I think Kittle, again, is the kind of guy that is, like Brock Bowers, just going to be so solid and get you very, very good points on a weekly basis. There's just no nonsense about him, and he's going to be used very well. Like I said, there's just a way I'm sort of going about tight end this year. I've just gone a bit less, but I cannot fault anyone because I love George Kittle.
Yeah, and so I'm just doing that strategy of pay up, get what you expect. And if he doesn't give me what I expect early, I'm going to move on quickly because that's a lot of money to have tied up on a guy who makes the plates wobble. So this is the confidence I've got in him. Do people have the same confidence in the guy who's next on the list? Trey McBride is 15% owned and most of the same cash investment. Plays for the Cardinals, had a great season last year, even without a bunch of touchdowns, which was amazing. I think it took to week 16 to get a touchdown last year.
Yeah, I had this written down too. So he was 111 for 1146 and 2, but one of those 2 was basically him leaping onto a fumble in the end zone. So it was basically one receiving touchdown and a leapt-on fumble. So it was an incredible year for him.
He had a rushing touchdown too, didn't he?
Yeah, I think that was the rushing touchdown. I think maybe he had 2 in the air and that. But it just proves you 111 receptions for that low amount of touchdowns is honestly incredible work. Well done, Kyler. You've just done some amazing work there, mate. But
it's hard to do. That's hard to do. You 111 times, you sort of accidentally find yourself in the end zone sometimes.
It wasn't 111 targets. It was 111 catches. That's how insane that season was. So you have to believe there's reason for upside there to me. Like, obviously, if he ups that even just to like a 5, 6, 7 range touchdowns, there's reason to believe that he beats his starting price. My one little concern, and I've actually brought this up on some group chats and things like that, is if we see the full breakout of Marvin Harrison this year, if we actually see some more, I guess, targets sort of being funneled to the wide receiver position and it's not all Trey McBride, what do we get volume-wise out of him? So my concern is that, like, look, I'll just say this. I don't have a concern that he's going backwards. Like, I think, again, like the other two top tight ends, I think you're just getting what you're paying for. My worry is that, yes, you can get more touchdowns. My concern is it sort of evened out by less volume? So it's like, what if he's 5, 6, 7 touchdowns, but he's got 90 catches instead of 111 or 95 catches. And that's an amazing season still for a tight end. But it's just like, at that price, am I just sort of getting what I'm paying for again? So I'm not looking at any of those 3 of these amazing SuperCoach buys you have to have because they're just going to smash through their price. They're just the 3 best buys by a country mile in terms of points per week. So if you want to lock in any of the 3, if you just want to go one of the 2 guys that are $1 million less than Kittle and go a McBride or a Bowers, all the power to you. I've got no problem.
Yeah, I don't mind any of them. I've just gone with the Kittle one, and I think this is kind of where there's been a massive break. We've had either the super cheap rookies who we think are going to, see opportunity, and then we've got the 3 stalwarts of draft NFL fantasy. Here's where it gets fun, because this is the next 5, and these are the last 5 we're going to talk about at tight end specifically today. Travis Kelce's 12% owned. Don't know if you know him. Apparently has a girlfriend that people know about as well, kind of somewhat interesting and popular. $10.75 million is the buy-in for him. So compared to some of these other guys, he's a fair bit cheaper. But why?
So his girlfriend has an awesome name, or his fiance. I don't know what that name is, Matty. So
named after your favorite Chicago Bear?
For anyone at home, just look that up, that first name of his fiance.
First name. Okay.
Absolute cracker. It's got bad spelling, but it's an absolute cracking name.
Is it Matty with 1 T? Oh, I fucking hate that.
Travis Kelce, look, the downside case is pretty obvious. Obviously, it looks like it's probably his last year. He's into his mid-30s. Like, the idea is that when you hit this sort of age cliff that he's kind of gone past by a mile already, you don't really generally see, guys going and having a better season than the year before. But I'll give you some reason for optimism about Travis Kelce. So in the games where Rashee Rice didn't play in 2024, 9 out of his 13 games he scored higher than his break even, which is 18, including games of 32, 34, 50, 44, 41, 25, 27, and 45. That's all SuperCoach points last season. So I do believe that in the first 6 weeks, there is actually reason for optimism without Rashee Rice, because for anyone that's sort of watched Chiefs games, he sort of sits around the same part of the field as Rashee Rice. So a lot of those sort of dump-offs and those slant routes and, that the Chiefs like to run, they're actually what Rice was sort of starting to take over from Kelce early last year. And then he obviously went down injured. So I do believe that, there could be a very, very good start to the season for Kelce. So if you want to sort of jump on him that sort of smaller price, and kind of hope for a bit of a price jump in those first 6 weeks, then maybe trade him as Rice comes in. I've got no problem with it. It's just not something I'll do because I want to see it. And, at that age, there is also the Chiefs just don't have an amazing offense again this year, and they just eke their way to, 17, 14 wins, and they don't need to use Kelce in the regular season. But it's one that's interesting for sure. Yeah,
I didn't start with him, although I could see the opportunity for him to generate cash early in the season, depending on what happens when fellas like Rice and the offense gets its groove. So I just kind of thought that can be someone else's problem. If I'm wrong on that, so be it. I can play catch up later because he's fairly cheap. In the same price range, Sam Laporta is owned at almost the exact same rate. This guy was tight end 1 in 2023, came into last year, and he was a little less productive, but it was mainly due to having had a lot of touchdowns the year before. So last year, he loses a few of them. It dings his value. Do we still think he's a reasonable purchase at 10.5 mil?
Look, that's been the problem with me. And obviously coming into, say, last year, I wasn't high on Laporta because yes, he had that great rookie campaign, but it wasn't like the way Brock Bowers did it. It was all predicated on touchdowns. It wasn't volume. And we always say that, targets are a sticky stat. They're an earned stat. Like, basically, if you're getting yourself open and in this offense, like creating targets for yourself, then that's basically showcasing how good of a tight end or how good of a, position player you are and how trusted you are in the offense. Whereas with the Lions, they can kind of beat you in so many different ways that sometimes Laporta's just not needed. They can run the ball so well. Yes, they've got a less, well-rounded offensive line this year, and there is sort of reasons to believe they might pass a bit more this year, which obviously is a tick in the column for Laporta. It's another one I need to see at that price. It's like it's not low enough for me to see this amazing value. It's like, yes, could Laporta have a ridiculous touchdown year where it's not high volume again, but he's just getting all these high, high SuperCoach points out of the touchdowns? Sure. But again, that's like, okay, what's he raised from 10.5 million to like maybe 13 million in the first like 3 or 4 weeks from that? I just don't think there's high enough upside because I'm not seeing the targets and the volume there. So it's like, yeah, take your shot on a touchdown, get it from a good offense, great. I'm just not so sure it happens.
Yeah, I mean, even the site itself is saying, hey, 3-week projection is week 1. Projection's 13 points. So that's already losing you money on the break even. And the 3-week projection's 15.7. So it's saying, hey, his start to the season could be a little bit rough. You may end up being able to pick him up later in the season when the matchups improve at a reduced rate. If he was already at 8 million, oh, yeah, okay. Then that would probably be a little bit more interesting. But he's just out of my range when it comes to these mid guys who I would consider.
Matty, when we get into this next guy, is there a chance you might take the mantle on this? Because I feel like this is your dude. Let's get into it, mate. I think don't kick to me, mate. I'm going to undersell this. You go with it, mate.
Oh, don't do this to me, because this is the one format I'm not owning him in. And I'm going to take away the foreskinning here. That's a bit of a terminology from our other show as well, is that Kyle Pitts from the Atlanta Falcons is my guy. I've been talking him up since way early in the preseason when he has disappointed people perennially in fantasy football in season-long formats for a long time, and probably in daily as well. My brother really got me talking about daily a couple of weeks ago when he was on our other show. But at 8% owned, $8.36 million, I think this is one of those mid-range guys you could really consider, because at the moment already he's in a position where his 3-week projection is around about what his breakout is. So he's expected to return money. And I don't think that there's any likelihood he's going to under-deliver that. The Falcons have got Darnell Mooney, who may not even play this weekend, Drake London, and not much else to throw to in a division where they're up against some teams who've got emerging offenses and they're going to have to pass the ball to keep up. So I've got a lot of faith in Kyle Pitts over the course of the season. At $8.6 million, I would otherwise have him. But there's a guy who I think you need to talk about in a minute is the reason I don't have him. What do you think about Kyle Pitts?
Yeah, I've got no problem with it. Like, obviously, Michael Penix coming in, bit of a gunslinger, just sort of airs it out like a mini sort of younger Jameis in a way, where he just, he seems to have a license to throw. So I don't mind it. Like, it's just a hard one at that price point. Like you said, we're going to touch on someone that I am far higher on for an even less of a price. So
yeah.
It's just one that I was never really going to put into my team. But it's interesting. Like, we talked about Drake London. He had an amazing finish to last year with Penix, and Pitt started to show a lot when Penix came in those last 3 games last year too. So there's reason for upside, especially with this offense in general. They get a pretty good matchup against the Bucs, where I think it's going to be a high-scoring affair in week 1. So there's reason to believe. But, yeah, there's other guys that I just think fit a better, fit that price tag a little bit better.
Yeah, and I think the only nervous for me is that he's priced off last year's stats where he played 15 games. So, that's not a massive return given some of the investments that you had to make for some of the better players at this position who did have better seasons last year. And if you want to shoot at a guy who had a more disappointing season last year, who has more opportunity to grow, there are better options. I like Kyle Pitts for the draft format 100%. In this format, I'm gonna stop talking about Kyle Pitts now, because this is the reason that I'm not owning him. Is the next fellow on the list is TJ Hawkinson for the Minnesota Vikings. Tell me why you are big on this fellow for SuperCoach this year, because I'm big on him in every format, but certainly here in SuperCoach, I just thought he was a must-have, absolute must-have.
Give me the floor, Matty. Give me some space. I need a lot of space, knowing the size of me, and I may break through that floor, but I need it, Matty. See, this is my.
We're going to give you the whole side of the key. You can have everyone else. You're in ISO. The other four of us are on the other side, mate.
Yeah, and I'm going to be called for 3 seconds multiple times by the ref. I'm going to be sticking on my soapbox for a long time on this guy, TJ Hawkinson. SuperCoaches, what are you doing? 7% owned. 7 at this time. My goodness. Here's some stats for you if you're not convinced by my random opening line. His average based off 2023 before he did his injury in this exact same offense, obviously different quarterback, but exact same coach, different philosophy. Yep. Same philosophy on offense. He averaged 29.46 SuperCoach points, and he has a break even of 13 going into week 1. I'll even do you one better than this. The game he tore his ACL in 2023, he already had 19.6 SuperCoach points, and it wasn't even half time, Matty C. So his average for that season would have been well over 30 SuperCoach points per game, obviously, if he didn't go down off that injury. As I mentioned, same coaching staff. If anything, a rookie or a red shirt rookie, like we like to call him, will dump off more to him. There's no Jordan Addison in the first 3 weeks, so you know, no wide receiver 2. Obviously, they just traded for Adam Thielen, but
he's been in 9 minutes.
I have less confidence in Adam Thielen than I would have in Jordan Addison taking a lot of those targets. Like I said, this price is based off him last year playing half the season, coming off not only a torn ACL, but a torn MCL as well. And for anyone that's sort of listened to like the NRL physio, for any NRL super coaches out there, we all know that coming off an ACL, it's generally the year after you come back that you actually get back to a full recovery. So I just think, no, it's an absolute no-brainer for me, Matty. See, 7% owned. He should be in everyone's team. I honestly cannot believe it.
It's 93% too low, and at $7.6 million, this is the cornerstone of what I'm doing at tight end and why I think I'm okay to spend up on Kittle and then use this as my other starter, and then I can go and do some cash generation on my bench with one of the rookies. So that's how I've got my tight end situation set up, and it's very deliberately for that. I want a star. I want a guy who can really blow the doors off and score like a star and generate me money, and then a third guy on the bench. His whole job is just generating money. That's what I'm doing.
Yep, no problem, mate.
Last guy at the tight end position, he's kind of an old favourite, this guy. He's like an old pair of jeans. He's been getting around the league a long time, Mark Andrews. He is 6% owned. The last time we saw him, he was dropping what should have been a touchdown against the Ravens in the in the divisional playoff last year. He's priced at $12.54 million and has a break-even of a little over 20. But I don't have him in my team, and it really is because of just how prohibitive that cost is, considering what his break-even and what his 3-week projection is. He's looking to – you're going to need 20 out of him every single week, and that offense just hasn't been as prolific for the tight end and for pass catches and as predictable as I'd like for that kind of investment.
Matty, it's a hard pass from me. 55 for 673 yards last year. Sure, that's repeatable. What's not repeatable for me is the 11 touchdowns receiving. And it was also coming off an outlier passing season from Lamar where he passed for 41 touchdowns. That's just my reservation on this. Their succession plan is also staring them in the face in Isaiah Likely, who, yes, picked up an injury in the preseason, but he wasn't put on IR, so he should be back soon. I just, like you already touched on, mate, I won't go on too much, but I just don't trust this passing offense game to game. They lead a lot of games, and they basically just sort of use Lamar and Henry to run out games in the second half a lot. So, yeah, it's a big pass to me. I just think if you're trying to, repeat 11 touchdowns, I just think it's fool's gold and tight end. It's too random. So, mate, I just think he's got to do too much to repeat on what he did last year.
Get most of the same scoring for about $2 million less by rolling with it. Dallas got it, but again, it's $10 million, and I'd rather not pump that into a tight end who's not my gun. And even at $10 million, I'm not sure I'm finding a gun. Really closest thing I've got is that Hawkinson is so cheap and looking to produce like that. So, is there anyone else you wanted to bring up here at tight end? You've got a pod hidden in there?
Yeah, I got a pod, one that I think could really start the season high. He was actually in my team for a while until I decided to save money a bit. And I was basically using this guy as a pod, what I thought would be a star early, but like I said, I just decided I didn't need to put as much money into that position. So I used elsewhere, but I've gone with David Njoku at 12.38 million, break even at 21 and 2% owned. Joe Flacco coming in and starting is just huge for him. I'll give you some stats on the last time Joe Flacco was starting for the Browns in 2023. He was in there from weeks 14 to 17, and this is the SuperCoach points he scored. Week 14, 54.2. Week 15, 52.8. Week 16, 32.8. Week 17, 34.8. And that's for a break even of 21 for this year. Like,
Jesus Christ.
Is there reason to believe that we're not going to see exactly that Flacco from 2 years ago? I guess, but like, you got to look at him and go, he's 40. Well, he was 38 when he did this. Is there really that much difference? Like, I just think Flacco, the way that he plays, he just throws that pill all over the place. And I just think Njoku is completely trusted with him. So, yeah, I think it's a very, very good pod play. Obviously, it sits in that 12 million mark where it's sometimes hard to spend, and there is obviously value in other guys. But I think he's the kind of guy for 3 million less than Kittle and 2 million less than the other two top guys that I think could have a start like them for cheaper. So it's just really whether you can spend that 2 million saving from those top guys elsewhere, and if you need it. I just found that I would rather go a bit lower, but I think he's an amazing pod to start the season. I wouldn't be surprised if anyone that did, or that 2% that does, might have a very good start on their hands.
Yeah, and so for similar reasons, I kind of did the same thing. I went for someone who's not on the expensive end, but kind of in the same line as Tyler Warren and Colson Loveland. I went and threw our mate at the Jets, Mason Taylor, in because he's a full $500,000 cheaper than each of them, and it just kind of let me squeeze a little bit more juice out of getting Kittle and squeeze a little bit more juice out of what I can do with my flex. So I've got him in at $4 million. He's sitting on my bench and is not scoring for me and has limitless upside because at a break even of 3 points, you can't do much better than that. Mason Taylor, $4 million.
Just
he's my pod, no dramas.
He's in my team. He's my bench tight end. So of that one, because I personally like his situation more than Colson Loveland. So I've taken him as my bench tight end instead.
Totally. We saw that the tight end position in New York as well through Tyler Conklin has had 50 catches each of the last 3 seasons. Not 51, not 49. 50. Always 50. So I kind of feel like I can bank on that. Mate, we have got through the top 10 tight ends. We've now also talked through some pods as well. Defense and kicker are a different proposition altogether. You need one at each of these positions in your scoring, but you also need one each not scoring on your bench. Got a general strategy for how you're attacking the kicker position?
Yeah, mate, my general way I'm doing it is I'm spending as fuck all money as I can. I found the cheapest possible starter, and that's Loop from the Baltimore Ravens, that I think should just be in everyone's team, because for people that are doing this for the first time, and this is like from questions I've had online and people posting their teams, this has been the biggest question, and people putting in bloody $14 million kickers. The variance is crazy in kicker. Like, on any given week, the lowest valued kicker could outscore the top valued kicker on any week. It is completely all over the place. Like, please do not spend a crap ton of money on your starting kicker. And to be honest, Luke from Baltimore, he's on an awesome offense. So yes, he's a rookie kicker, and there's obviously going to be a chance that he is an amazing kicker. But the fact is, he's on a great offense. It's all about situation with your kicker in NFL fantasy. It's not about who's the best kicker and like, exactly who's on the best offense. To a degree, the offense thing's true, but like in the end, you kind of almost need your team to be good enough to actually get stopped to like 30 yards out to kicking field goals anyway. It's so random who's a good kicker week to week that it just is silly to me to spend up on it. And the fact is, you are not going to make money on anyone. Like all these guys that are around 10, 12 million, you're just not going to make the money off them. So, mate, spend the low as possible. I've also changed my tune a little bit on the whole loophole thing that we talked about, because I don't believe you should loophole, certain positions, but I don't mind doing it with your backup kicker, because I don't think the money's going to be made in the kicking position anyway, so you're not enough money to do it. So just put basically enough, like they call in SuperCoach, on your bench. So I've basically spent like $7 million total, or just over $7 million on my kicker position completely.
Oh my God. What do you do at a second kicker if you've got Tyler Loop at 3.7 for your first one?
You do not need one. Please do not spend. That's even bigger PSA. If you're going to spend some more money than I'm saying on your starter, do not spend money on your backup. You do not need a backup kicker, please.
Yeah, and I figured your two strategies are either you just go and spend money on someone you know is going to be in an offensive scoring position a lot, right? If you want to go and spend some money on someone who's a household name, who's going to make you sleep better, fine. It's probably not the way to win SuperCoach, but it will score you points. I get it. The thing to know about kicker is that, as Tay said, they have one job. They go out and it doesn't matter where they are on the field. They just have to boot the ball through the post. They are not in control of, is it an extra point? Is it a 40-yard kick? Is it a 50-yard kick? To them, they're going through the same motion and they've got no control over the value of it to their team. A 1-point kick is a 33-yard kick. You can score 3 points for the team on a kick that's 20 yards because they got stopped on the one, but the kicker has to do all the exact same things and they're not in control of it. So it's such a difficult position to honestly project for beyond. Is the team expected to be in scoring position often? That's about the best you can do. Kicker is one of these positions where you'll have a couple of players who will recycle in the top 5, but it is almost impossible to go back-to-back as number one kicker. It's so difficult that there is just nothing sticky about it aside from the get into an offensive position. So I'm 100% with you on spending as little as you can to make sure that you get as maximum dollar for point return. Just aim for someone who's on an offense you expect to score points.
Honestly, if you're a super coach and you haven't done a lot of NFL fantasy, go out and ask people that have and ask them how many leagues they're in that even have kicker and defense in their leagues anymore. Like, so many leagues have just got rid of them because they're sick. Like, it's a position that no one even bothers to draft high. They just wait till their last rounds of the draft because they just take anyone that's available because it doesn't matter because, like you said, for the top 5 year to year might be the different top 5 like 4 or 5 years in a row. Like, it's just constantly churning over because it's so random who's going to be the best kicker in the league. So just do not spend money on it. And I'll just touch quickly on defense too, just because we've got a lot to go through tonight. I'm the same in that regard. I do believe that, like, the lowest score, like, you know, defenses, I've kind of stuck away from that. I initially had Carolina, who's like 3.8 mil, as the lowest defense on my bench, but I did have concerns that maybe that might create, like, issues with, like, if I ever decided to loop, it might create an AE nightmare, like they call, where basically you're getting your lowest scoring thing on your bench, and that could be a horrendous score from, like, Carolina is on my defense. So I did spend a tiny bit more on defense even in my backup for that reason, because I do believe Carolina's defense is going to be horrendous again this year. So if you want to steer clear from them, even though they are the cheapest option, I would probably do it. But I still haven't wanted to spend a lot. I'm seeing a lot of people spending 12 mil on, like, the Broncos, who I think are amazing defense, but it's still hard to predict. It's still, you got to also factor in, like, sometimes teams, they might have a good defense, but they don't come up with a great schedule and they play against a lot of teams week to week that might be great. Like, Denver's defense might be awesome. There's still a chance they're going to get torched by Josh Allen and the Bills on a certain week. Like, it's so random that like, you're just better off saving money. I personally have the Chiefs at 7 mil, and then I like the Giants at 5 mil. Like, they've got an amazing pass rush, so I reckon they might be able to terrorize teams with that pass rush. So I just haven't wanted to spend a lot. I think it's about 12 mil total that I've spent on the two defenses, and yeah, I just think you don't need to spend up.
Well, and the position scoring is really to reward two things. If you can shut a team out, which almost never happens, and if you can score defensive touchdowns. They're the two ways you can score big points with a defense. Even holding a team to under 6 points is worth 14 for your defense. But, I mean, NFL teams aren't thinking in terms of, do I hold you to 0? Do I hold you to 6? They're not thinking like that. All they're thinking is, do I have more points than my opponent? Margins don't matter nearly as much as they do to us. And for folks who are considering that as a method to choosing the defense, I would urge you to move away from that quickly. A team would rather win 21-20 than be worried about whether they hold a team to 6, whether they shut a team out. They just want to win the game and move on, because a win is a win. Doesn't matter if you win by 1 or 100. Sacks also score your points for your defense in a way that they don't in some formats of fantasy football. They score you 2 points in this format. And there is enough ways to lose points. If you've got a team who, I mean, you can win a game and end up with, 28 or more points against your defense, and your defense is going to eat a -2 point loss to your fantasy team. So you got to be really careful about worrying about the team's ability to stop point scoring. What you really need to do is be focusing in on, can they generate sacks? How likely are they to turn the ball over? They're the ways that you're going to score points.
And honestly, if you're out there and you've spent 12 or 13 million in your defense and you've got like a mid-range you're not sure about in wide receiver, go and downgrade your defense to a 6 or 7 million and then upgrade that wide receiver to a gun. I just feel like that makes more sense. It's the kind of way I've run my team. I just think there are other positions you need to spend your money in, so don't overload on defense.
Yeah, I mean, and I've gone the exact opposite. I've just gone bargain basement defenses, and I've got the Jags in my starting because they're playing against Carolina, who aren't an incredible offense, not really, and the Titans, who are they're just going to be my bench fodder, fine. And that meant that I could start gun receivers everywhere. I've done a bit of tweaking to my receivers where now I've got guys like Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra, Mike Evans, and CeeDee Lamb all in there as guns. 5 guns. I'm going heavy there and then just cheap for the rest of it. Igbuka, McMillan, Jacoby Myers is my mid-range because I've done this with my other positions.
Yep. No worries.
Mate, one question then is the flex position. I just have a question for this. It's not a mailbag question. It's just a Matty C question. Which positions or players would you target to take up your flex position?
Yeah, so we sort of touched on this last week with the wide receivers, and we were sort of comparing to NRL positions. When we first started NRL with the flex position coming in, I think we were all targeting fullbacks, and I think the quarterback is the most correlated position to say fullback in the NRL SuperCoach space. So I definitely am targeting a quarterback. I just think it's too high a value of position. If you don't have a quarterback in that flex, I think you are doing it wrong. I even saw a team online that had a defense in their flex. So,
oh Jesus!
Please find the funds. I've also got no issue. I'm finding a lot of people are trying to save bulk money and they're going McCarthy and Ward. I don't have a problem with that, honestly. I think it might leave you a little bit short, like say week 1 and week 2 points wise, but you're gonna make so much money that I don't actually have a problem with that either. I would be starting McCarthy over Ward. I've obviously talked about that already, but please have a quarterback. You need 3 quarterbacks in your team, put it that way. So one of them's got to be a flex.
Yeah, and I just went and spent the most money I could on them. I've got Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson in my flex, and then I've got McCarthy on my bench as my bench quarterback. That's it. I just went hard.
Yep. Oh, mate, I'm always hard, Matty, so you know that.
100%. You will be now because we're going to get into the mailbag. This is a chance to get some questions answered. Tay, when we put the call out for the mailbag, that thing filled up.
Mate, it did quickly. Sort of just gone through it and just found some relevant ones for people out there. We couldn't really get to all of them because, we've got to get this pod at least somewhere near the hour or the half, or we're just bursting past that thing. But, we've got 4 for tonight, Matty C, so looking forward to it.
Yeah, I reckon 4. We'll get it done in 10 minutes and let people have some of their hour back. First one comes from Marcus Alobo, and he says, hey, mate, what's a good predicted score for week 1?
So anyone out there, please don't worry about predicted scores. I was even having a chat with someone about this the other day where the first team I made when NFL SuperCoach, first launched, the first team I made was sitting at 425. And that, again, I don't even really know the reference if that was good or not. But then the team I've actually made now is at 409, and I actually like it better. It's honestly, predictive scores, especially on a new platform like NFL SuperCoach, no one has any idea. They're just throwing out, rough numbers that they believe they could be scoring. There's also what I've kind of noticed is if you decide to save money on rookies and start them, I find your predicted score often takes a hit because they are just basically predicting the rookies to score so low because obviously their break evens are. It also depends on how much money you are pumping into your starting team, and if you're basically just going bargain basement on the bench and all your money's in your starters, then you're going to probably have a higher projection, but that might not necessarily be a better thing for your season as a whole. So please don't worry about predictive scores, guys. It's just a guide. If you're sitting at 450 and someone else is sitting at 420, it really doesn't matter. So please don't make that the be all and end all of your team in week 1.
Yeah, I think it's just too much we don't know. And we find this in, season-long fantasy football as well, in draft formats. Week 1, any website will give you its prediction of what it thinks is going to happen. And week 1 is often the week that throws up the most bizarre outcomes because we truly know the least of any week before week 1's games. Second question comes from @Brendan Kane, and he says, mate, is it worth running enough to start the season? And if so, where would you run them?
Yeah, I sort of went to touch on that, and I mentioned that I don't mind a backup kicker because I just don't think there's a lot of money to be made in that position anyway, and I just don't think it's a position you want to be spending a lot of money on. It's also one that you can replace a kicker pretty easily, and they generally, I'm not going to try and put the mocker on anyone, but they generally don't get injured a lot. They're just basically kicking. It happens occasionally, but
More likely to get cut.
That often. So I don't think you need the backup kicker too often. So I'm fine using that as a loophole option to bring in. I would not do. Please do not do it in any other. In any of the other positions. Like, obviously you can't use it in defense anyway, because obviously you have to have a team that's playing. So I would not use it for running back, wide receiver, tight end, any of these positions, because there are so many money-making opportunities in those positions that I just think it's silly. You're foregoing the opportunity of $5 or $10 million in cash growth for some of these guys for just for the chance of looping, money maybe once or twice this entire season. So yeah, I don't mind it just because I don't mind the backup kicker shout. I'm doing it personally myself. It wasn't so much because I have to feel the need to loop. It was just more because I felt like it worked, for the build of my team. But yeah, please don't do it for those main positions.
All right. I've got one here from Croc Hunter. He says, who are some players who should have an increased role early that you can sell off for a profit when guys return?
Yeah, look, I think Emeka Egbuka is a great one straight off the bat.
Classic.
He's a great pick in SuperCoach anyway, obviously being bottom dollar rookie, but there is obviously Chris Godwin that's, coming in. He's obviously not playing right now, and he's going to be out sort of that anywhere between 4 and 6 weeks. So I think there's a potential there around that time. I don't think he's necessarily a sell at that point. I'd like to actually see it because I think there's a chance that he just actually keeps being the wide receiver too, and Godwin doesn't even take over that role anyway, because we've seen him in the past come back from bad injuries and it's taken him a long, long time. So yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a sell at that point, but it's one just to keep an eye on. I think he could just smash that wide receiver 2 role early. I've got a sneaky one for you, Matty. So who's owned by a whopping total of 0% of SuperCoaches out there. It's Jerome Ford at the running back position for the Browns. He essentially has that number one role until Quinshon Judkins comes back from what we can assume as a league-wide suspension. He plays the Bengals in the first week who have a terrible defense. So
God,
that's an interesting pod. And I'll just touch base with one. It sort of goes in the same line of Kelsey as Xavier Worthy for the first 6 weeks of Rashee Rice out. Like I said, I think that works for Kelsey as well, but I think there's just so many opportunities for him and Kelsey in those first 6 weeks with Rice out. So I think we're great one. I'm personally starting with him right now. I think I've just got this feeling, like I said in my plums, that he's going to have a great start to the year, and you could easily just trade him out for a profit after 6 weeks and move that to a gun.
Yeah, I can imagine you kind of also doing that with in a smaller way, Kittle, depending on what it looks like when Pearsall's integrated into that offense and Ayuk is back. But that's a little further down the track. That's like half season. So, and you're talking about a guy who's a high price. So, so his chance of cash generation may not be so incredible, but you never know. We've seen some of those ginormous scores that Njoku was throwing up. So Kittle may well do something like that. Last one here is from Jeff Wallace. He says, how important is buy planning? There are week 8 where 6 teams are on a bye to consider. Man, Buymageddon is rough.
It's not important at all when you're making your week 1 team. Don't even worry about it. I honestly, for people that are out there saying, I can't start this guy and add this guy because they've got the same bye week, do not worry about it in week 1. It's fine. We have trades for a reason. It's just not relevant at the start. And to be honest, we have backups. Like, we have, 2 guys on our wide receiver bench. We've got a backup tight end. Like, you don't even have to use a trade. But even for those situations where you have 2 guys that might have the same buy, like I just mentioned, we have trades. Like, when it starts to get, like, let's say, for week 8 that there is obviously all those buys, have a look at it in week 5 or week 6. Like, you've got time to prep. Like, you don't need to be worried about that right now. Just pick the best players who have the best situation to make money or to score you fantasy or SuperCoach points. That's all you need to focus on right now. We have plenty of time to worry about buys later. That time will come. We'll be on this podcast talking to you about the buys incoming. Please don't worry about it right now.
Yeah, this is why you got trade boosts. I mean, 100% why you got trade boosts is that if you can manage your season just using your your 2 moves, maximum moves per week, and you can store those for the weeks where you've got the bigger buy considerations, then yeah, you can slowly maneuver your team. It's the thing, right? Is you're not looking to make wholesale changes one week to the next. It really is tectonic, and you have to sort of plan it out, be a little glacial about it, and let the evolution happen.
Absolutely, mate.
Tay, before we wrap up, mate, a lot of folks here are looking for a pearl of wisdom. Just one more from the guru. Have you got anything that you can share with us to prepare us for week 1 before we leave the SuperCoaches to go off into the wilderness and start accumulating their points?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. So for anyone that's either looking for pods or they've got their team set up and they just want to know what the best sort of matchups are for week 1, I just thought I would touch on basically each position and essentially the top 5 matchups for week 1 based off what teams did in terms of defenses last year. So I'll sort of, just talk about it as I go through it. But basically in the quarterback position, the top 5 teams to target are the Cowboys, who gave up the most fantasy points to the quarterback position last year. The Panthers were second. The Falcons were third. The Jaguars were fourth. And the Bucs.
Don't say that.
No, sorry, mate. Didn't mean to.
I will strangle you.
Didn't mean to kick a Jags fan while he was already down. But look. Jalen Hurts up against the Cowboys. Trevor Lawrence up against the Panthers. Obviously, Baker Mayfield, I think, is a great one for week 1 against the Falcons. Bryce Young, I probably want to see it, but it's a great matchup against the Jags. And then you've got on the other side of Baker Mayfield, Michael Penix in week 1 against the Bucs. So that's some quarterback matchups to sort of target, because obviously it's based off last year's data and it isn't always indicative of the following year, but just generally those teams. And honestly, a lot of the data I'm seeing with those defenses, they don't look like they've done a lot to them, like to make them better. If anything, they've made them worse, a la Cowboys with Micah Parsons trading him.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
So they are good.
Base plant.
In the quarterback position. Running back, basically the Panthers were last in terms of points given up to the running back position last year. So, you've got your mixture of, you've got Bashal Tootin, you've got Tank Bigsby, and you've got Travis Etienne. You've got all 3 of them that could actually do a number on this Panthers defense. You've got the Jags in the same game, who are the second worst team. So anyone, rocking Chuba Hubbard, great matchup. The Pats, the Bears, and the Titans round out the top 5 in terms of matchups. So for anyone, with guys that might be playing against those teams, you could be in for a very good week 1.
I do expect the Bears to be a little more solid this year, but it's week 1, so we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. The wide receiver position, the Vikings, funnily enough, they actually have a decent defense, but they were the worst in terms of giving up fantasy points to the wide receiver position. That was followed by the Browns, the Jags again. They feature it a lot. The Falcons and the Ravens. So if you've got anyone sort of up against those teams, just have a look. We've got the Bengals against the Browns. That could be an absolute field day. The Bears up against the Vikings. We talked about the Panthers against the Jags. Bucks wide receivers, your Egg Booker against the Falcons. Great matchup, and the Bills against the Ravens. So, could be a good opportunity for those guys. And we'll touch on tight end quickly. Tight end is a funny one. It seems so weird year in, year out that the teams just sort of are happy to give up sort of yardage to the tight end position. And it seems to be one of these stickier stats that seems to happen year in, year out. So tight end actually is one of these ones where if you're streaming it in regular NFL fantasy or looking for, a bit of a budget tight end, you actually can target matchups a lot in tight end. It's great. So the Bengals were last against the tight end position last season, followed by the Raiders, the Rams, the Panthers, sneaking in there again.
Oh, weird.
And the Colts. So it's a good opportunity. Obviously, I brought up Njoku as a pod. He gets the best possible matchup against the Bengals. Hunter Henry is an interesting one. Mr. Was it 2 last names? Yes. It needs a couple of first names. But, Hunter Henry's a great matchup for that one. So, even you've got the Texans up against the Rams. So, Dalton Schultz might be one that you might want to have a look at. Panthers, obviously, Brenton Strange is a guy that I think could actually get some targets against the Panthers. And then you've got Miami. So if anyone's, looking to go Darren Waller, he gets basically the 5th worst tight end defense in week 1.
I would be terrified if I was starting Darren Waller, I think.
Yes, I
think he's going to play tight end about this year about as well as he used to rap. So
as I just want to say, this is a guide. This is a guide in terms of like what defenses are doing over an entire year. This isn't, hey, Taylor told me on this bloody podcast to go start Darren Waller.
You better start Darren Waller.
Gets tight end. It's just basically like, look, if you're looking for pods, differences to, sort of get you up the rankings that not everyone's doing, it is an opportunity.
Yeah.
Or it's like, I've already got this guy in my lineup. He's got an amazing matchup. It's wheels up.
Yes, mate. And look, we've done it. We got done in under an hour. Amazing. That is pretty much a half hour.
The boys. Oh, it's half-ish. It's half-ish.
Look, thank you so much for all the feedback and support we've been getting too. Taylor's been out there kicking the can and talking to the Joe public out there to find out what you want in the show. That's why we built the show this way. What do you still want to see us do? Do you have questions? Reach out. Talk to us. Taylor is out there and getting amongst the people and finding out. And, mate, I hear you've just been getting questions left and right.
More Seinfeld. I'm out there, Jerry, and I'm loving every minute of it. It's basically a full-time job at this point, just reaching out to people about this podcast. And honestly, mate, I wouldn't have it any other way. Like, thank you so much. I keep talking about this on every single podcast, but I'm so thankful to everyone that's reaching out, like with all your questions and just your start sit decisions and all your sending me your teams. I love it. This is exactly why we're doing this podcast. And, I'm so keen for the NFL to start, as I know all you super coaches are. So, mate, honestly, keep the questions coming. We're going to be here every single week. So, yep, let's do it, Matty C. I cannot wait.
100%. Game tomorrow, game on Saturday, and then they all pile in on Monday. Make sure you join that Aussie Gridiron Network tipping competition over at Linktree/Aussie Gridiron Network. You can even find some pretty cool merch on that site. Every show that we do on there, including G'day Gridiron, Aussie Gridiron Today, which looks after Australian Gridiron, and of course, where we live, the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show as well. Tay, I'll catch you around Fantasyland, but if I don't see you before, I'll see you right back here on the Halfa next week, mate.
Sounds good, mate. Thank you, SuperCoaches.
Thank you, SuperCoaches. Hooroo.
Get it faster. Taylor leads, Matty's laughter. NFL SuperCoach Halfa. NFL SuperCoach Halfa. Get your edge, get it faster. Taylor leads, Matty's laughter. NFL SuperCoach Halfa.